Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Today we have a special class. We're going to go over some of the responses from the previous versions or previous episodes and comment on some of them, because some of them were really great and some of them were just great. Not in any particular order here. Just starting from the top. Jean Appel was responding to Being Integrity 4, Crucible of Being. And he says, I forgot to mention that Bill made a lot of mistakes and learned out of them to become an authentic leader. He committed himself to something greater, bigger than himself, serving humanity with authenticity and passion. So that's what you have to do to be a success. To be a successful human being, or to be successful at whatever it is you want to do with your life. You have to be willing to make a commitment. Not just to your own self, something bigger than yourself. And that becomes a context that uses you. For example, we're committed to clearing the planet. So when you put yourself in that position, you get so much inspiration, you get so much power by making a commitment to something bigger than yourself. People who are only committed to themselves have no power. They're giving up their power because they're only being selfish. And everybody knows people who are selfish are a drag, right?
All their problems are really big, but our personal problems become small in the big context.
That's a good point. Did you hear what Ronnie said? When you're only committed to yourself, your personal problems look really big. But when you're committed to something greater than yourself, you're putting them in such a huge context that they shrink down to nothing. And it's a fact. That's why I said, if you can solve the problem of clearing the planet, your personal problems are going to be solved without a doubt. You don't have to struggle. You don't have to work to solve your problems. You simply commit yourself to a bigger context, and that context automatically shrinks your personal problems down to something very easy to take care of, as a byproduct, almost. Can you say more about that? Okay. Looking at the next one here, Kanai made a really nice comment. He says, I look forward every day to these seminars. A new lifeline has been thrown. Well, the lifeline was already there. We didn't manufacture it. What did we do? Well, we made a commitment to it. I've been involved with this work, specifically with ontology work, since 2001. And in 2002, I discovered transontology, which was the only way that I could see to translate the wisdom of the Vedas into a Western terminology that made any sense. If not, you have to go into the Vedic culture, you have to learn so many things, you have to practice for a long time, and then maybe you'll get it. But what we need to do, because we don't have the time to do that, we don't have lifetimes to work on this. We want to get it done now. So what we have to do is translate the highest Vedic wisdom into simple, easily understood Western terminology. That requires ontology, because basically we have to reconstruct the entire teaching in Western terms. Okay, so that means we have to invent a language. We have to invent a domain of terminology, as it's called. That's an ontological term that refers to the shop talk that professionals use in their work, like doctors, lawyers, theologians, people like that who have a specialty, a special interest. They have a specific vocabulary of terms that they use to describe their work to themselves and to each other. And that allows them to model the process of their work with enough fidelity that they can actually predict what's going to be the outcome of certain actions. So the doctor can look at you and he says, oh, you have this and this and that, and he can name the body parts and the symptoms and what they do, and he knows how they're all connected, and so he can instantly come up with the treatment that's appropriate. just out of his domain knowledge, his specialized domain knowledge. And that domain knowledge begins with vocabulary. That's why we're so insistent that people look up the terminology. Look up the terms in a good dictionary. Sometimes for some technical things you may have to look beyond the dictionary. For example, ontology has several meanings that don't show up in the usual dictionaries. And you're going to have to become familiar with them because we're going to use them in the course. So you can either go do some research on ontology, and I'll tell you where to begin. W3C.com, the World Wide Web Consortium. W3C.com has a whole section on web ontology, and of course that will take you to Protégé, the software tool that's used to generate those ontologies, and then you'll see how I came to this work by investigating the World Wide Web, the next generation technology that they were hatching for the semantic web. Because we always had an interest in semantics, we had no idea what lay beyond it was something even more powerful called ontology. But part of ontology is creating these domains of specialized terminology that can be used in a conversation. And by means of this special terminology, we can have a conversation about things that we would normally never be able to talk about, like being, consciousness, existence, transformation, see, context.
Feelings.
Yes, feelings. The terminology that we derive from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rasa Tattva, is perfect for talking about feelings. And as we go, we're going to develop online ontologies that you can actually query and get answers to different questions about feelings based on the ontology of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And we're just waiting for somebody to show up that has the skills to do the work. And I can give them the methodology. So what we need now is your participation in this seminar. Okay, so far it's been very nice that you're responding to the questions and exercises in the course. But there's a lot more that you can do. You can learn about these different subject matters like ontology and so on independently. It doesn't require us to spoon feed you, and it doesn't need any special equipment or software. Just by looking up the terms, you can get an amazing amount of advancement in these sciences. So, Kanai, what we're doing now is just a step towards an even bigger project that we right now don't have the resources to handle. But we have it all planned out. When Ronnie visited me in February, I was feverishly at work making ontologies. And we've only implemented a small fraction of those ontologies, and we were working on it today, getting all inspired about the stuff that we're going to do. It's going to be very cool, but I can't say anything about it. So you're just going to have to wait until we get around to doing something. Here's one from Marino. Hi everybody. I did my homework of clearing all the words in the sentence to leave participants actually being with integrity and able to be themselves authentically, and to be a space where a new science of being capable of clearing the planet can show up. Unquote. And encourage everybody to try it out. It works. Well, thank you. I'm always amazed at how difficult it is to convince people to actually look up their words.
People think they know the meaning of the words.
They do.
And it's painful to admit that you don't know.
It's painful to admit that you don't know, and it's painful to admit that you never have known. And that you've been guessing, playing guessing games all these years about what other people mean when they say stuff. And even what you mean when you say stuff.
And you also said that the false ego is related to those misunderstood terms?
Yes. The false ego would like to define the terms in a way that maximizes his strengths, his perceived strengths, and minimizes his perceived weaknesses. I didn't make a mistake. It was a learning experience.
Well, that's a good argument.
Well, yeah, I mean, but provided you actually learn from it.
Yes.
You see? if someone doesn't have the space of listening for learning, they're going to take whatever they can and twist it to make themselves look good. That's not ontology. That's false ego. Okay? That's putting spin on things. And we don't really like to do that. What we want to do is get to the real meaning, the real intention behind the words, the idea behind the words, and try to duplicate that idea. And to do that, you have to know that I'm using the words in their dictionary meaning, and you have to know the definitions of those words according to the dictionary so that you can decipher what I'm talking about and duplicate the idea in your own mind. And if you do that, then you'll be amazed what happens. Everything becomes so much clearer, so much easier. Now you can read the newspaper or read an article without falling asleep, without getting distracted, without losing your train of thought, without getting symptoms and having to go and pee or get a glass of water or something else to break the train of thought, because you've run into a misunderstood word. It's happened to you a million times before. It happened a million times in school, especially. They make you sit there, and the teacher who's been to college lectures you who have not been to college, and you accumulate dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of misunderstood terms. Because after all, you're not looking them up in the dictionary, are you? So this is a form of psychological torture, where you have to tolerate the symptoms to misunderstood terms and sit there on that hard wooden chair and not go anywhere, not leave the room, and pretend to pay attention, and so on. Horrible. It's torture. It's torture. It's conditioning. Okay? Everybody's going to pretend they know what they're talking about, and everybody who hears them is going to pretend that they know what they're talking about, when they really don't. And they're just guessing. Everybody's guessing. Right? Well, cut out the guesswork. Look up your terms. Memorize the definitions of the important words of the language, and use them according to the dictionary. You'd be surprised how much easier it makes things. We were using this in a pitch for our consulting business. That when I was a technical writer, I was 3 to 5 times more productive than the average technical writer. And anybody who knows me knows that I can consume and digest information the way Ronnie does prasadam.
Which is a lot.
2 wooden legs, hollow legs. Anyway, we're joking, but I can process information much faster than the typical person because I actually know the definitions of the words. And because of that, I don't make so many mistakes. I don't have to do things over and over again until I get it right. I get it right the first time. And I'm used to that. That's my normal way of operation. Because in my youth, I used to read the dictionary for pleasure. And when I was a devotee, I was working in the BBT, and I looked up every single word in Srila Prabhupada's Chaitanya Charitamrita. So that exercise led me to have a great appreciation for the dictionary and the power of knowing the definitions of the words. So yeah, this is not just about for fun. It's not just us trying to give you some busy work or homework.
It's a powerful tool.
Yeah, we're talking about life here. This isn't school anymore. It's a course, yeah. It's a seminar, yeah. And we're kind of leading you through the material, yeah. You can find all this material online and go through it yourself. It's no big secret. But the association, the interchange, the exchange of information and insights is what makes it worthwhile.
And a supported group.
Right. Association. So here's a comment from Tomuta Adrian. I don't know him. He just showed up and said, hey, I want to do the course. So that's great. It would be nice to know more about you. Maybe you could post a little background and we'll share it with the other members of the group. He says, I think fear is given by a concern for appearances, and trust, integrity, friendship is given by commitment to contribute. This is what I understand until now. He was responding to the question, what in your own way of being and actions is given by a concern for appearances, and what is given by a commitment to contribute? I restructured the question because he was having a little trouble understanding it. I suspect that English is not his native language. So he was responding to that and making a distinction between feelings that we get out of a concern for appearances, right? Now, if you're concerned with how you show up to other people, yeah, you're going to be concerned with your appearance. But if you're afraid, then it means you suspect that your appearance is not really authentic. See? Because if you're authentic and you're being who you really are, there's no question of fear. I mean, once you get past the initial plunge. It's like going in the water, you know. At first it's like, oh, it's cold. And then finally you just jump in and deal with it, right? Well, it's the same thing with being authentic. At first, you know, you think about it and it seems really hard, you know, even worse than looking up words in the dictionary, oh my God. But then when you finally just jump in, take the plunge and do it, you'll be amazed what happens. People will make a space for you, and you won't have to think about what you look like. You won't have to worry about your appearance or how you show up to others, because guess what? You're going to show up as you. And there's no alternate self or false ego or phony identities or pseudo posturing or any of that nonsense. That all goes away. And all the considerations about that also go away. And guess what? That frees up so many brain cells that now you have the ability to be who you really are without thinking, without holding back, without censoring yourself, because you're committed to being who you are and being more than who you are. Being committed to something greater than yourself. And out of that being comes a spontaneous self-expression that is genuine, authentic, and real. People can sense that, and they respect it in a certain way. They may not like you, but they'll give you space. And that's what you need to be yourself, just a little space. Let's see what else we got here. Did you have anything to say?
Well, I'm experiencing both things these days. Like now, sometimes I'm into what I'm talking about and forgetting myself, my appearances and everything like that. But then I try to pay attention and try to come up with stuff, and that doesn't work. And then I do get more concerned about appearances and how I sit, and I can't relax the same, stuff like that.
Well, I mean, if you are making a professional presentation to a broad audience, you probably want to look neat and, you know, have a professional demeanor and stuff like that, if only because it helps people assimilate the information. At least they're not going to reject it immediately because you look sloppy, you talk funny, or whatever. They're going to at least listen and consider what you have to say. And credibility is a tangible asset in our business. We want people to be able to listen to us, but at the same time, we want to be ourselves too, you know, like beads. Oh, I forgot my beads. Oh boy. There they are. But we want to be ourselves and be who we really are, but without forcing it on anybody or making it a requirement of participating in a seminar or anything like that. We really don't care what you do with this technology. We really don't. And what that gets us is, it gets us off the hook of having to approve or be involved in or responsible for or give permission for you being yourself. You already have our permission to be yourself. Go for it. More power to you. We want to see all of our students in this course go on to do something powerful, something that only they can do, because it's a natural expression of their self. So who knows what they're going to do? We don't know. And
follow their tastes, and only they know what their taste is like.
Very good. Yeah. We want you to find your taste and follow it. And we empower you and give you tools to do that. Then it's up to you. Like we said, the more you participate, the more benefits you get, and the more you're going to feel the rewards of this course and this way of being. So let's look at some other ones, okay? MB, Mathuradas, says, being authentic is real, true, or what people say it is. That's interesting. Being authentic is real, true, or what people say it is. I'm not sure what you mean by that. But if authenticity is what other people say it is, then you're in trouble. Because you're always going to be watching other people to find out if you're being authentic. That doesn't work. That doesn't work.
I've been running on that program for many years, and I suspect many people do that.
Yeah, I think they do. It's hard for me to remember. Because a long time ago, when I was in ISKCON and being pressured by my godbrothers, I had to give up the idea that anybody is going to like the way I really am. It's too bad, but whether they like it or not, I'm going to be who I really am. It's either that or be dead. And I don't want to be dead.
I guess I've compromised to get along with people.
Yes.
And I notice now when I take a stand in Facebook that people are reacting strongly to me taking a stand.
Good.
Yeah.
That's another. That's a sign of authenticity. That people either like it or they don't. But almost nobody can remain neutral. Everybody has got some response, some feeling to it. So in that way, maybe other people's responses are an indicator of whether you're being truly authentic. But the best indicator is your own heart. He goes on to say, one of his answers is being open to receive this information with an open heart. Yeah, because this information, we're giving it from our hearts. And we want you to receive it in your heart. Ultimately, this is about your taste, your mood, your style, the center of gravity of your emotions. And making sure that you are the hero that you really are inside. We'll get into this later on in the seminar, after we go through all this stuff about ontology and everything, how to implement it. And the way you implement it is, out of an ontology of various personality types, you select the one that appeals to you the most. And you make sure that the mood is directed in a positive way. In other words, that a primary rasa, one of the five primary rasas, is your center of gravity of emotion. And we'll get into all this technical stuff later. Don't worry about that. But what you need to know is that we are going to cover how you choose your being, how you choose to be yourself. There's a method to it. Yes, of course, it's an existential choice that anybody can make at any moment. But at the same time, there is a method to it, and there's an ontology to it. And we'll give you access to that ontology, access to those tools that are very powerful.
They give you a handle on it.
Yes. One thing to know who you are, another thing is to have a handle on who you are. Because sometimes you want to be somebody different. Like the other night we were going home, we almost got hit by a car. And so I knocked my keys against the side of the guy's car. Hey, you don't do that to us. And so he stopped his car and got up. He was a big stocky guy. I'm going to punch you in the face. And we just stood there and looked at him. Oh, really? And he got this really frightened expression on his face, and he backed down and went back in his car and drove away. I guess he never faced two lions before. But that punch you in the face line just did not work. Anyway, So sometimes you want to be somebody a little bit different, depending on the situation. You know, heroes have different faces too. Sometimes they can be fighters, and other times they can be lovers, and other times they can be sages, and other times they can be fathers, and all kinds of different roles. Okay?
Context.
Right. So if you really let the context use you, it doesn't matter who you are. What matters is that you're responding appropriately as a natural self-expression to the context. And believe me, this is such a freedom like I've never tasted before in my life. And the way we've been living, especially since we've been here in Barcelona, is that every moment trying to be in the moment and respond authentically to the context. And it's been just one adventure after another the whole time. Really amazing.
It's not always easy, but it's definitely a learning experience.
Oh, it's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Right? But Mathura Das adds, sadly, I failed to be authentic and a person of integrity with my prior crucible experience. Sure enough, another crucible experience is in progress. So, yeah, if you choose not to respond to a crucible with authenticity, what will happen is, you'll get out of the crucible, but without really resolving it. And what that means is it goes into your shadow and it follows you around, and the next opportunity that it gets is going to manifest again.
You didn't loosen up your ontological constraints, so it's still there.
You weren't able to be who you had to be to clear that crucible experience. See? Just like Bill George. He was a very successful guy. He was already a multi-millionaire. You know, he could retire at any time, live the life of Riley. That's an American expression. It means to have everything you want and just loaf around, take it easy. But instead, he chose to restructure his personality and his way of being, and to take another opportunity at a much smaller company, but one that was more aligned with who he really wanted to be.
More dynamic.
Yeah.
He could use more of himself there.
Yes.
All the big ones.
And he could also cause more growth and change than he could at the big company that was already set in so many ways. So his response was authentic. And one of the real indicators to me that it was authentic was that he was willing to give up a way of being that had already resulted in a significant success for him. You know, just like when I resigned as guru in the esoteric teaching, it was really starting to work. We were getting more and more disciples coming, and better and better qualified, and so on like that. But I got to see that the context was not letting me be myself, because we had all these rules and stuff.
And it wasn't letting the other people be themselves either.
Of course not. And if your idea of liberation is that you get away from being yourself, well, I got news for you. It's the opposite. Real freedom is the ability to be just exactly who you are, without having to worry about it, without being afraid, without holding back.
Moments.
Yes. It frees up so much energy, so much headspace.
And that's what Uttama Bhakti is all about too.
I think so. Because who you really are in eternity, in relation to Krishna, is your eternal identity. So what is that? If you don't know, don't tell me about being a pure devotee.
It's a natural, spontaneous self-expression.
Yes, and that's how you find it out. So what we're doing here is a step on the way. Speaking of which, Adriel Werlich, another person I don't know all that well. I wish he would share a little more of his background with us, and we'd like to get to know you. He says, I want to be in this course because I have a strong desire to be a better person, to correct my mistakes and faults of character, and not to fall again in the same errors of the past. Don't want to hurt people like I did before, don't want to harm myself again with nonsense behavior. I desire to attain eternal life. Liberation. Go to Vaikuntha and get eternal association with Krishna, Narayan, Vishnu, Balaram, Radharani, the gopis and gopas of Vrindavan, Ramachandra, etc. I wish to go to the spiritual world and see what's happening there. That's the final goal. Meanwhile, I have to work real practical problems of life. I have to work, live, etc., but simultaneously continually studying the Vedas to understand more about the absolute truth and applying that on my daily life, and also enjoying my relationship with Krishna and the Vaishnavas. Now, I don't want to be critical, but in this response, it sounds like you're mixing together several different rasas, several different tastes. Okay, talk about Narayan, Vishnu, and then Vaikuntha, and then Vrindavan. But these are different tastes. And if you study Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is really a good idea for all devotees, you will understand that people who follow Vaidhi Bhakti go to Vaikuntha. People who follow the materialistic external path of the Vedic sacrifices, they go to Vishnu within this universe. Okay? But people who cultivate ecstatic love, spontaneous attraction for Krishna, go to Krishna Loka. And they get to taste all these different tastes in association there. But that's on the platform of spontaneous love, and that's a different thing than Vaidhi Bhakti, which takes you to Vaikuntha. Okay? These things are not well known in the devotee community. So we encourage people to study Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, because that will explain all these things in tremendous detail, more than we have time or space to hear. I started explaining these things in the Bhakti Master class, but unfortunately, because the devotees didn't really want to hear that, they didn't support it, and so that work is left unfinished. So let's see, anyone else here? Jean-Natel. Jean-Natel says...
Did you finish the last one?
Yeah. I didn't read the whole thing. I just read the parts that I wanted to respond to. He says, authenticity means the quality of being genuine or true. It requires integrity and sincerity to be an authentic person. As a participant of the seminar, it requires to stick to the course so that first of all I clear myself to become an enlightened co-creator, and then together we shall clear this planet. Yes! That's the intention that we need and want from participants in the seminar. So, do you have anything to share? I wanted to share something about my feelings about the seminar. I was reading Bill George's book, his quotes, and he was saying that a lot of times he felt fear, inadequacy, uncertainty. He was had a lot of pressure to deal with his own and others' mistakes, and the challenges of the business world that often came from unanticipated sources, and so on. We also experience this. Sometimes the people that we rely on the most to help us wind up becoming our enemies and stuff like that, like in the esoteric teaching group, like in ISKCON, like in so many religious contexts that we've all been in. Because people's affinity to us is not based on who we really are. It's based on some appearance or some external role. So when I was playing the role of guru, I had to make believe, and everybody else had to make believe, that everything I said, every drop of nectar that fell from my lips was pure gold, even though sometimes I said really stupid things. Nobody could laugh, or whatever. In fact, whenever I did crack a joke, I'd have to laugh to let everybody know that it was funny. Anyway, I found myself going, well, this is a relief, tremendous relief, being able to own my feelings of inadequacy. I don't know how many times I said, I don't feel qualified for this. I don't know what I'm doing. I still don't know what I'm doing. But now it's okay. Now it's okay. I can even make mistakes. Because I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm not expecting myself to be perfect. I may have become expert in certain things, certain meditation techniques or consciousness or certain areas of knowledge or whatever. That doesn't mean that I'm perfect absolutely. Nobody is.
Still a human being.
Yeah, and human beings are limited by nature, by definition. So we're all imperfect, we all make mistakes, we all are in illusion, we all have imperfect senses, and so on and so forth. Okay, what's next, right? That means it's okay. It's okay to be afraid. Okay to be uncertain. Okay not to know what you're doing.
Okay to make mistakes.
Oh, it's definitely okay to make mistakes.
Mistakes are the pillars of success.
That's how you learn. Failure is the pillar of success. Not more than mistakes. Failure. The whole thing collapses.
As long as you learn from them.
Yes. It's your attitude. If you are a space of experience, a space where mistakes and failure can show up as learning. See? If you're listening for learning, you're going to learn from everything, from everyone. See, if you're being a student, if you're being open to what you could learn out of the situation, you're going to learn, whether anyone teaches you or not. Okay, so it depends more on your space of listening, your space of consciousness and how it's shaped. The context that you are when you walk into a situation determines what you're going to get out of it. So what we like to do is we like to say, be a space of listening for learning. Is there something I can learn here? Something I can get from this? Is there a nugget of truth in this ocean of bullshit? It depends on how you listen. Some people can hear the truth and not recognize it as the truth because they're not a space where truth can show up. But some people can hear all kinds of nonsense, but they can get truth out of it because they're a space where truth can show up. See the difference? So what we're trying to do here is to provoke you, to stimulate you, and by association and example, show you how to be a space where truth can show up, where authenticity can show up, where sincerity, learning, perception, consciousness can show up as themselves, not disguised as any other thing. Where you can show up as yourself and be who you are, and it's okay. Even if we make mistakes, well, so what? You're still alive, aren't you? So there's hope. Go on with it. Don't give up. Because quitters are, by definition, unsuccessful. So all you're doing by quitting is saying, yeah, you're right.
I give up.
I'm never going to make it. But someone who never gives up is successful by definition because they're making the effort. It's like Prabhupada would say, you can't criticize somebody who's in the shower for being dirty. Hey, you're all dirty. Oh yeah, well, I'm getting clean. So hang in there. This is a hard course. We know it's tough. We're going through it ourselves as we're creating it. So we're trying to live it every day so that we can report to you what it's like, and share with you the experience of being who we really are. Okay? Okay. Hare Krishna.
Vedango.